What's going on, my fantasy footballers, and welcome back to another video for the love of fantasy football, where I, Richie K, your boy, take you through the ins and outs of fantasy football. If you're new to the channel, hello, hi, how you doing? And welcome to the channel for the love of fantasy football, where I, Richie K, talk about the basics of fantasy football and give you a little bit of inside knowledge of what you should do for your fantasy football team. Whether you're a rookie who's just getting into it, or a veteran who's been looking to get a little more inside knowledge, I'm your boy, and this is the channel for you. Before I get into my video, I just want to give a big, huge thank you to you guys, all my viewers, to getting me to 20 subscribers in my first couple weeks of YouTubing. It has been such a grind because YouTubing is not something that I thought I was going to be doing, especially during PT school. All of the hours spent video editing, studying, taking care of my dog, taking care of my wife, just kidding, has been very tiring, and I am actually surprised that I've kept up with the YouTube channel. Although I've only been uploading about one video a week, I do appreciate all the love and support that you guys have shown me and my channel, and I hope you guys continue to support me in the long run. But let's get into it. Last week, I didn't really get into the players that I thought were going to have major games for week 3 of the NFL season. This week, I got a lot of players for you, and I've done a lot of research, and I've looked at a lot of the matchups, and I really think these players that I'm going to talk about are going to produce on Sunday and produce for your fantasy football team. I've looked at matchups, I've looked at players that are injured, I've looked at quarterback efficiency, all those things that go into fantasy football, I've looked at and done it for you. So as long as you keep watching the video up until the end, you should get all of the fantasy advice that you need to win on Sunday. So without further ado, let's get into it. For quarterbacks, I believe that Matt Stafford and Jared Goff are going to be one of the top performers at the quarterback position for week 4 of the NFL season. Now, you might be scared in starting Matt Stafford because they are playing the New Orleans Saints. However, the New Orleans Saints are going to be without some of the best players on defense, and the Lions just got back their number 1 receiver in Kenny Galladay, which means Matt Stafford should have a field day against the New Orleans Saints. And it's a home game for the Lions, where he has done the best over his entire career. Next up is Jared Goff. I really don't need to go into why I think Jared Goff is going to be one of the better quarterbacks this week, because they are going against the New York Giants, and the New York Giants defense is just a dumpster fire. So I really think that the entire Rams offense, Darrell Henderson, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, who I'll actually be talking about shortly here, and Jared Goff are all going to have great games. So if you have Jared Goff in your starting lineup, or if you can pick Jared Goff up off of the waiver wire, I would suggest doing so and putting him in your starting lineup, because he will put up some of the better fantasy points at the quarterback position. Next up, let's talk about some running backs that I think are going to put up big numbers in week 4 of the NFL season. First up, Mike Davis. Mike Davis took over the starting role for Christian McCaffrey in the last couple weeks, and he's actually put up some great numbers, especially against the Chargers last weekend, when I really didn't think he was going to have a great game, because the Chargers actually do have one of the better rush defenses in the NFL. This week, the Panthers go against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals might be a little bit worse of a defense compared to the Chargers, which is why I think Mike Davis is going to have one of the better games in the running back position. Another thing to point out is that Mike Davis has actually been getting a lot of receiving targets in the Panthers offense, which should give you more fantasy points, especially in a PPR league. Next up is Travis Homer and or Carlos Hyde. These are the running backs for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I'm not saying to pick them up and start them right away, because Chris Carson actually might come back from the injury he suffered last weekend against the Cowboys, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because that was just an ugly performance by the Cowboys, and I'm very sad about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. But Carlos Hyde and Travis Homer, if Chris Carson is injured, are going to have an increase in playing time, which means that they're going to have an increase in production. And Carlos Hyde is already a seasoned veteran at the running back position, so I do expect him to take over the starting role. But Travis Homer is a great option as well, because he has shown that he can carry the load when the other running backs are injured. So I do think the combination of these two players can have over 100 yards total and probably a couple touchdowns. And on the flip side, they were playing against the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins give up some of the most rushing yards in the entire league. So if you have Travis Homer or Carlos Hyde, I do feel comfortable putting them in the flex position, because I do think either of them can go off for big yardage and get a couple touchdowns. And my last running back that I think is going to have one of the better games amongst all running backs is Darrell Henderson. Again, I don't need to go into why I think he's going to have a big game because they're playing against the New York Giants. And again, the New York Giants are just a dumpster fire of a team, and all the Rams players should have great games. So you can expect Darrell Henderson to have probably 120 total yards, so rushing and receiving, and at least a touchdown. The next position that I'm going to talk about is wide receiver. And the first player that I do want to talk about is Tyler Lockett, receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. As I said prior, when talking about Travis Homer and Carlos Hyde, the Seattle Seahawks are going against the Miami Dolphins defense. And again, the Miami Dolphins defense gives up some of the most production to opposing offenses in the entire league. And y'all saw what Tyler Lockett did against my Cowboys defense, which, although I already told you that the Cowboys are not going to stop any type of number 1 or number 2 receivers. But anyways, he still had a huge game. The Seahawks are going to incorporate him even more into the offense, and you can expect Tyler Lockett to have one of the better games this season. Maybe not as good as last weekend, but he should still put up over 100 yards and a touchdown. The next receiver that I think is going to have a top performance amongst all the other receivers is Tyler Boyd, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. Although AJ Green is back and getting healthy and is considered the number 1 receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow and Tyler Boyd have actually had one of the best connections amongst all wide receiver and quarterback combos of the entire NFL. I believe Tyler Boyd has gone over 100 yards in the past 2 games and has had multiple receiving touchdowns. The Cincinnati Bengals are also playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I really don't think the Jaguars defense is going to be able to stop this quarterback wide receiver duo, especially from watching last week's game of the Jaguars and Dolphins. The Jaguars weren't able to stop Ryan Fitzpatrick at all. So you can expect Tyler Boyd to have a big game this weekend, maybe even a career game. Next up is Justin Jefferson. I didn't expect the type of game Justin Jefferson to put up last weekend, but this man went off. He went bananas. He went bonkers. He put up over 170 yards, had a touchdown, and about 8 receptions, if I do remember. And after reading a lot of the articles that have been published, it does seem that Justin Jefferson is going to be incorporated into the offense even more. So you can expect Kirk Cousins to be targeting Justin Jefferson a lot against the Houston Texans, and Justin Jefferson to have a big game again. The next player that I want to talk about is Andy Isabella. The only reason I want to talk about him is because DeAndre Hopkins might be out for the Arizona Cardinals, so Andy Isabella should have more playing time, which means more production. On top of DeAndre Hopkins possibly being injured, Andy Isabella has actually been targeted quite a few times by Kyler Murray. His targets have been increasing each and every week as opposing defenses are targeting to stop DeAndre Hopkins. So if Andy Isabella is still on the waiver wire come Sunday morning, I would suggest picking him up. And if DeAndre Hopkins is out, I would suggest putting him in your starting lineup, possibly as another flex option, because he should have a pretty good game, if not up to 10 receptions. And the last receiver that I want to talk about is Marquez Valdes-Scantling, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. The reason that I think he might have one of the better games of all wide receivers is because Davante Adams is back, and Allen Lazard, the up-and-coming player that has been doing so hot for the Packers in the past couple games, has actually just gotten surgery for his core muscle. So he's going to be out for the next few games, if not for the rest of the season, which means Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or MVS for short, is going to have a much bigger impact in this Packers offense, which is already one of the better passing offenses in the entire NFL. And opposing defenses are going to try and stop Davante Adams, which means MVS should get more looks and more receptions and more yards. I think he could get at least a touchdown and maybe 50 to 80 yards, which is actually a pretty good day for a number 2 receiver that has just been pushed into the starting lineup. The last position that I want to talk about are tight ends. There have been quite a few tight ends that are just not doing so well or have been injured this NFL season. So these next few players that I'm going to talk about, you should actually pick up, if not already picked up, and put them in your starting lineup because they are producing well and are going to produce this week for your fantasy football team. The first player is Tyler Higbee. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics as to why I think Tyler Higbee is going to have a monster game because they're playing the New York Giants, and Tyler Higbee has actually been one of the better and most consistent tight end players of the entire NFL. So Jared Goff should be targeting Tyler Higbee a lot. He should get about 6 receptions, upwards of 80 yards receiving, and a touchdown, if not 2. especially against the New York Giants defense. The next player, however, is a household name, but might not be on your fantasy football team because he has not been producing at all at the tight end position until Nick Foles was thrusted into the Bears' starting quarterback role. This tight end is Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham had 2 touchdowns last Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know it's the Atlanta Falcons defense and they're not really good, but he did have almost 10 targets, which means Nick Foles likes to go to his tight ends a lot, and we saw that in Philadelphia when he was in there. So I do expect Jimmy Graham to have better production as Nick Foles being the starting quarterback, which means more receiving yards and touchdowns for your fantasy football team. So if Jimmy Graham is on the waiver wire, which he probably is in most leagues, or might be picked up as of recently, go and pick him up. And if you have a hurt tight end, say like Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, or even Jonnu Smith just now, I would suggest putting Jimmy Graham into your starting tight end role, and you can expect some great production out of him, especially this weekend. And the last tight end that I think is going to have one of the better productions out of the tight end positions is my boy, Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not being a homer at all. Honestly, Dalton Schultz has been getting so many targets. He's had quite a few receptions, and he's getting quite a bit of touchdowns in the last couple weeks. And you can actually expect him to have a great game on Sunday, especially against the Browns defense. Now, if you made it this far into the video and wonder what kind of shirt I have on, kind of fit, kind of fat, I just want to say that their clothing line is awesome. It's so comfortable. You can wear it to the gym, you can wear it to Disneyland, you can wear it out, you can wear it to sleep, whatever. The clothing is awesome. It's super funny. As you can see, got some Galaxy gains here. I am in no way a partner of them or affiliated with them. I just really do like their products and their line. And the owner of Kind of Fit, Kind of Fat is a physical therapist, which I am trying to be. So it is really awesome clothing line. And the owner is just a really cool dude. So check out Kind of Fit, Kind of Fat on Instagram. Check out their clothing line because I know there's something that you will find and you will like. Anyways, that's it for today, my fantasy footballers. My top fantasy players that I think are going to produce the best on Sunday and produce the best for your fantasy football team. As always, I appreciate the support that you guys have shown me. I appreciate all the people that have subscribed to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would really appreciate if you do. I thank you guys for showing your love and support. And if you like the video, like the video. Love y'all. Hope your Sunday is awesome. And as always, may your Sundays be epic.